Hi guys, how are you? How was your couple of days that you've had between Christmas and New Year's? Did you have a good, are you having a good vacation, a good time hanging out and not really worrying about school and all of that and work? I hope so. I hope that you're enjoying this because sometimes you need a break. And this year we need a lot of breaks. It's been a crazy, crazy year. And now we're going to start a new one. And I see a lot all over the place. I see a lot of people and a lot of things are saying it's a new year. We're going to start all over again. Let's know that this year is going to be a better year. I don't know if it's going to be a better year. I don't know if it's going to be the same kind of a year or a worse year. I don't know. But I thought we could talk about that a little bit because we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So I found some Bible. I found Bible verse, a scripture that I've known a long time. I like the scripture, and I've probably read it before. But I think it applies for what we're talking about, which is new beginnings, right, and change. So it's from Ecclesiastes, and you probably have heard it before. It's Ecclesiastes, and it's chapter 3, verses 1 through 13. And they actually wrote a song, wrote this to music a long time ago when I was a teenager. There's a right time for everything. Everything on earth has its special season. There's a time to be born and a time to die. There's a time to plant and a time to pull up the plants. There's a time to kill and a time to heal. There's a time to destroy and a time to build, a time to cry and a time to laugh. There's a time to be sad and a time to dance. And there's a time to throw away stones, and then there's a time to gather them together. There is a time to hug and a time not to hug. There's a time to look for something and a time to stop looking for it. And there's a time to keep things. And there is a time to throw things away. There is a time to tear apart and a time to sew together. There is a time to be silent and a time to speak. There is a time to love and a time to hate. There's a time for war and a time for peace. Does a person really gain anything from his work? I saw the hard work God has given us to do. God has also given us a desire to know the future. God certainly does everything just at the right time, but we can never completely understand what He is doing. So I realize that the best thing for people is to be happy. They should enjoy themselves as long as they live. God wants everyone to eat and drink and be happy in His work. These are gifts from God. So, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? There is a time for everything. There's a time to be sick and a time to heal. There's a time to hug and a time not to hug. Now, 2 years ago, I would have said there's no time not to hug. But now we know there's a time to not hug. But there's also a time to hug. I think what he's saying is that this is what life is. It's change. Everything is there for a reason. All of our emotions, all of what we do is there for a reason. The desire to touch someone, whether their heart or a hug, a kiss on the cheek, there's a desire to do that. And God gave us that because it's a connection. But there's also a time when we can't do that. And we have to know that that is normal, that that's okay. We have to know that. There's a time to be sad and a time to be happy. And that sad part of the time, that's a tough one. I don't want to be sad all the time. I don't want to be sad. I want to be happy. But there's a time to be sad when your best friend passes away. when your mom is sick, when the church closes for a little while, when you can't go to school. But there's also going to turn around, because that sad time is going to turn around when you can go back to school. When you understand that your best friend is with God and is in a good place. When your mom gets better. Those are times to be happy. Without those negative times, without those sad times, you can't appreciate the happy times. There's a time to have war and a time for peace. Why would that be? Why would it be that there's a time for war? Maybe because you're warring with something that is wrong. You have to war with it because there's no other way to change it. And war doesn't have to be shooting each other. That's part of it. But it could be railing against it, fighting it, right? Change. Sometimes there needs to be change because people bring their own stuff into things, right? So we've been having a lot of that going on recently because people have been treated badly because of how they look. That needs to change. And sometimes in order to change that, you need a war in that there's a fighting against it. It's not necessarily meaning that you need to shoot each other in this case. It just means that we need to maybe have a little bit of anger to push us into the direction of changing things so that we don't have that in existence of treating people differently because of how they look. All of these things, the good and the bad, the happy and the sad, the high and the low, are all necessary. You can't have highs if you don't have lows. You can't be extremely happy if you don't have times when you're really sad, because then it doesn't exist. I don't know if this makes sense. But I do know this. When things are good, my mind kind of looks for things that I need to worry about. When things are like everything is in place the way it's supposed to go, my mind goes to what am I going to worry about? And I find it, because my mind can find things to worry about. I find it. When I'm worrying about one important specific thing, like somebody being sick or my kids getting hurt, my mind does not go to those other things to worry about. It sticks with this one. And then when they're better, and it's better, because everything gets better. Bad things happen, and then it turns around and good things happen. Every single time. I am telling you, everything gets better. And when it does, then you feel the happiness. But if it's like that all the time, if it's up here all the time, always happy, your brain's going to go in a different direction. And I don't know, maybe God did that so that we know that we need the bad things in order to have the good things. I went to a friend of mine died this weekend, last week, and we went to the funeral on yesterday. We went to the funeral yesterday, and you can't do a lot of things with funerals now because it's not safe. And so we went to the cemetery, and we were standing there, and it was really cold. And they did a quiet service at the cemetery. And then his son said, because we can't do a luncheon or a repast after the funeral, right? So he said, I have a couple of beers in the car. I have some celebratory things in the car, and I want to take them out, and I want to talk about my dad. So here we are, mourning this really cool guy. He was full of stories and love for his family, and he had a connection to Kenny. There was just this whole thing, and so we were mourning him because he's gone. And his son wanted to celebrate him. So they proposed a toast to him, and they talked about him, and they did the stories right there at the cemetery. He took a bad thing and he made it a good thing. He took a bad thing and he made it a good thing. He took the sadness that we have to have, and then he turned it around so people were laughing and remembering. That's what it is. This is what life is. And the reason I get caught up in it is because sometimes you're in the bad part. You don't think it's going to get better. It feels like it's going to be like that all the time, and you can't handle it. And I'm telling you, it will get better. It always gets better. You just have to give it time and pray and understand and remember. Bad things get better. Bad times get better. Okay, so we're in a really rough time right now. It got a little better in the summer, right? And so we kind of enjoyed that. Like it was bad in the spring, and then in the summer it was a little easier to get around. You could eat dinner at a restaurant, which you hadn't been able to do. You could maybe hang with your friends and go to the park. They had closed the parks. They opened the parks. And now it's colder, and it's going back where we have to isolate more. It's going to come back around again. Right now it's hard. It's not quite as hard, I don't think, as it was in March and April, because in March and April we didn't know what to do and how it was going to end. And now we have a thing of we know how to handle it a little bit better. It's going to get better. There's a time for sadness and a time for happiness, a time for crying and a time for laughter. There's a time for people to be sick, a time for people to isolate, a time for people to not be able to hug each other. But it gets better. And there will be a time to hug again. And there will be a time to go bowling and go to the movies and have a party and celebrate. It's going to be there. And God said it. God put it in the Bible. There's a time to cry. And there is a time to laugh. And there's a time to be happy. This is the time for both. There are days when you're crying, yeah, a lot. And there's days when you're laughing. And sometimes you're crying and laughing within an hour for a man who was important to you, who was a good man, who died when he was very old and is with God and his mom and dad and his brother. And so that was how it should have been. This pandemic is going to get better, and we're going to learn from it. Because if something worse comes along in the future, we'll know more because we've had this. You learn from the bad so you can have the happy. You feel the bad so you can feel the happy. God gives you the harder things so you can learn and get stronger. And then God gives you the happy things so that you can take in the strength and take in the love and take in the positive stuff. God told us it was going to be like this. He put it in the Bible, and he helps us through it. My mom got hurt a long time ago. She got run over by a car. And I asked her, "Are you mad at God?" And she said, "I am not mad at God, because God is getting me through this." And within a year or two, I had Kevin, and I had to go back to work. And she was better. And because she was home, she could stay home and have this relationship with my kids. It was good. The bad thing was not put in place to cause it. The bad things happen. God gives you the tools to get to the good part. These things happen. God doesn't say, okay, now it's time for a bad thing. I don't think so. I think what God does is he allows the world to be the world and helps us through the stuff we need help with. So let's use it. Let's use the tools. Let's understand that bad things will happen, but God will get us through them. Let's know that we can mourn and be sad, and then we can be happy, even when my friend dies. Let's know that this is going to get better, and bad things will happen again, and we will get through those things. I say it a lot, up and down, up and down. That's how life is. Always come back up. It always comes back up. So remember that. Remember that this is going to get better. It did get better. It gets worse a little bit. It comes back up again. Know that you can get through all of this. That even if you can't hug your mom right now, you will be able to. And you can hug her a different way. Know that you're going to be able to be with your friends again. And right now you're with them in a different way. Know that church will open, but right now we have it through the internet. Schools will open, but right now we have it through the internet. Parties will happen. Weddings will happen. Two weddings in my life. And they will happen. And the people that are getting married, the two couples, Kevin and Emily and Colleen and Craig, it's going to be okay because they're going to know bad things happen and then good things happen. They're going to know you can get through the bad things to get to the good things, and then you're going to get through those bad things again. They're going to learn, and it's going to be there for them. God is always there for us. Pretty cool, right? So we have this new year. On Friday, it's the first day of 2021, and there's going to be bad things, but there's also going to be good things. And we're going to get through it, and we're going to love each other, and we're going to learn from it, and we're going to get stronger because of it. God does this. God does this. You pray, he gives you what you need. Not what you want, what you need. Sometimes you don't pray, you don't know you need it, and you get it anyway. So, your job this week is to remember bad things happen, good things come behind. It gets better. It always gets better. Always. The worst thing in the whole world could possibly happen to you. And then you can laugh. And then you cry. God gave that to us. It's a gift. The feelings are a gift. The emotions are a gift. It's a gift to be able to feel the sadness, and it's a gift to be able to feel the happiness, to be able to feel the fear and the strength, to be able to be close to people and then be able to survive not being close to people. Sometimes you need that time. So know that and get through this. And if you have a friend who doesn't know it, you could tell them. It's going to get better. You're going to have a good New Year's. It's going to be a good year, and it's going to be a bad year, and we're going to get through it together because God is right here. And he gave us to each other, and he's here anyway. So enjoy and celebrate. Celebrate New Year's Eve. Whether you celebrate it at midnight or like I do at 8 o'clock, celebrate it. Because it means we're still going. We're still here. Life still exists, and we're still part of it. Celebrate it. And when the hard stuff happens, find the tools that God gave us and get through it. And then the good stuff comes back around. I love you so much. I miss you so much. But you know what? We're going to be together soon. And God will be there with us, as God is always with us. Happy New Year. I love you.